On a windy day like this, take the petals, just ask for garden blessings. Just throw them in the air, you let them go. I do this all the time, and I'm just thankful for all the things that are growing so beautifully.
Hello everyone, I'm Chris Martinson of Peak Prosperity. You might know me as the COVID guy. I've been talking about COVID for a long time. But I also, at the end of pretty much every presentation on YouTube around COVID, I ended them with an admonition to plant a garden. Well, you're standing in my garden. This is the first year that Evie and I have been gardening here. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the gardening, but actually there's a deeper message I wanted to talk about, and it's about integrity. So I'm really big on integrity, and you know, we've talked about it a lot, and there's a lot of definitions, right? You could think of integrity as meaning what you say and saying what you mean. It could mean saying what you mean and then following that up with actions. So it could mean that you're consistent with who you are and how you present to the world. But actually, one of the deeper articulations of integrity that I got from a really good friend of mine and mentor, Peter Gallant, goes like this. Integrity means being willing to be re-educated at any moment in time. So that actually sounds a little wishy-washy, right? I'd get re-educated completely, but it means that you are so solid in your knowing of self that you can let go of your ego long enough to just learn something brand new. So here's how this all ties into gardening. I had been gardening for about 30 years, and I'm a good researcher, and I figure stuff out. I'm pretty observant, so I could tell you how you do it. And I learned from the best, right? From grandparents and all that. What you do is you get a rototiller, you till up the soil, you get it all really nice and fluffy, you plant your seeds in there, maybe you put a little fertilizer on there or something like that, and I could get you bushels of tomatoes and potatoes and beans and beets, everything, right? So I knew all of that, and then when we held one of our Peak Prosperity seminars a few years ago, out in Sebastopol, California, Adam Taggart had lined up a farm tour of a place called Singing Frogs Farms. So I'd seen little farms before, and many of them running community-supported agriculture or CSA operations. This is what they were doing. But within 30 minutes on that farm, 30 years of gardening went right out the window for me. Because I'm there, and these really bright young couple, Paul and Elizabeth Kaiser, they're describing how they went about getting the most amazing vegetables out of their garden.
That process from the first tillage pass to transplant-sized plants is usually about 9 to 11 weeks. That is 9 to 11 weeks of massive soil disturbance with no photosynthesis happening and no economic revenue. That 9 to 11 weeks, you're going to see right here in our no-till system in 45 minutes, going from these standing crops to the next transplant-sized standing crops, and it was just 3 people, 4 beds, 85 feet long. So we're clearing the top growth, leaving the roots intact, not disturbing the soil, not disturbing the roots. That huge rhizosphere, all the life around the roots are still there. Remove it all to the compost pile to be decomposed. Put on some organic fertilizer. This was calcium and a little bit of feather meal. Putting on fresh compost. It looks like a lot. It's about a ½ inch maximum, because it's only 2.5 wheelbarrows per bed. Put the irrigation lines back on. Transplant the next crops in. And in fact, we're multi-cropping. Oh, coffee break. Important. And we're multi-cropping 2 different crops because one of the crops takes up a lot of space and grows for 3 months. The other crop takes up a very little space and grows for a month and a half.
You can see a lot of exposed soil, like for instance, right, it went
So
away,
we're
but
filling
there.
up the exposed soil, watering in, done. Maintaining maximum, great.
How they could grow 4 seasons when other people could only grow 3 because of winter. Their soil was so good that their broccoli would gladly grow in it even during reasonable frosts. So they had learned soil science and figured out that if your soil's in great shape, your plants are in great shape. So they are actually soil farmers, not vegetable farmers. I'd been focusing above the ground, and I realized I needed to refocus below the ground. So what did they do? Well, they made sure that the soil was never disturbed, because when you till it or rototill it, as I was doing, what you're doing is taking something as complex as the forest canopy of a rainforest and chopping it all up, and then asking it to still be a rainforest. It can be, but not until it gets itself all sorted out from that damage. And as well, they would never leave soil exposed, so when they would pull a harvest off, it would get recovered with compost and planted with seedlings that within 45 minutes. And most importantly, the structure of the roots in the plants, whether it's a weed or a vegetable, that root structure down there in the soil is a really important part of that upside-down rainforest ecology. And so instead of pulling weeds out, which I've been doing for 30 years, they would chop them and drop them. So the roots stay down there, the weed is killed, or in this case you might harvest broccoli or a cabbage and the roots stay down there. Because of that, the soil improves amazingly and your plants do even better. Within 30 minutes of watching this operation and seeing that they had no pests whatsoever on their broccoli, and every time I've done broccoli, I have a lot of pests. I have these little white butterflies that come around, the cabbage looper butterflies, right? And they lay their eggs and you get these little green worms, and who likes broccoli with little green worms in it? I don't, right? Something I might have done is spray to get rid of those. And they also said, well, you know, here's the thing. What do we know about predator-prey relationships? We know that if you got rid of all the foxes and all the rabbits, who comes back faster? Who breeds faster in this story? Well, we all know that, right? It's the rabbits. Same thing if it's aphids and ladybugs. Ladybugs are the predators of aphids. Well, if you get rid of both of those, the aphids come back really quickly and the ladybugs more slowly. So they had planted really complicated permanent hedgerows, which each species was home for one of the predators, so they could lay their eggs and overwinter and do things like that. So they had been thinking through all of this ecology, but I didn't know that, right up front. I could just feel that this was a better way to farm. And I took that lesson and I haven't gardened the same since. I was completely re-educated. I didn't spend time going, but wait, Paul and Elizabeth, here's what I know about gardening. I didn't spend time resisting them. I didn't try and educate them about my better way of growing tomatoes. I just learned, I listened, and I was completely re-educated. And that's integrity. And so I feel like I'm gardening with much higher integrity now.
So Chris and I, in our first year garden this year, had so much to get done right from the start. And one of the biggest concerns I had was that we had really good soil that could potentially be wonderful, but it didn't have a lot of organic material in it. So what we did was we had a lot of tree work that had to get done, and we ended up with an enormous amount of wood that wouldn't have been good for burning or for building, and so it got chipped up, and this is exactly what's in our garden on all of our beds right now, not just the walkways, because it turns out that the soil doesn't like being exposed when you're getting ready to plant a bed, when you've just harvested something. The sun does a lot of damage if it's just beating down on those organisms, and we're trying to grow our soil to be as healthy as possible. Weeding is super easy with wood chips as a mulch, because look what you can do. You just put the wood chips and move them around over your weed, and the weed's gone. And then you can just let it be there, and it'll get reabsorbed back into the soil's nutrients. Wow, we have so many cherry tomatoes this year. These don't turn bright red, they just turn this gorgeous orange color, and they are delicious. These are our La Ciento kale. Got really tall this year.
That's integrity. Integrity is being willing to always be curious and learning. And that's what we're doing here at what we have named now, you'll be proud to know this, Honey Badger Farms. We've been operating this garden, and by the way, this is our first year in this garden, and it's already amazing. It's going to be even more amazing. 2 years, 3 years down the road, soil that when we got to it had pretty much no earthworms in it is going to be crawling with life. And I can't wait to show you those videos in a couple years. But for now, that's all I wanted to show you about this. And I also want to tell you that we are having a seminar this year. It's going to be online because of COVID. October 24th and 25th, you can register for it now. We've had a lot of registrations. It's going to be really good. Super lineup of people. And so just click the links here and you can get to that. If you like this stuff, remember to click the like button and help share this. And by the way, if you know anybody who needs to hear the message in this video, just share it with them. That's the most powerful way to help spread a message that you think is worthy and worthwhile. All right, thanks so much for listening. I'll be back next time, everybody. Bye-bye.